Welcome back. Once again, adventurers, let's play ChäoS Child. In the last episode, even more was revealed of Hinae Arimura's past concerning her estranged family, including the fact that they weren't actually her family. For in his final moments during the Shibuya earthquake, Shingo revealed to Hinae that they weren't actually related in any capacity whatsoever. In other words, Hinae was actually adopted by the Arimuras themselves. And it was that final revelation that served as the nail in the coffin that would ultimately awaken Hinae's gigolomaniac ability, the ability to discern truth from lies. It all started back in 2009. But on a different note, though no less important, it turns out that there is in fact a fifth victim that doesn't fit the profile of the previous four victims of the Return of the New Generation Madness. For starters, the victim was found on the 22nd. That's one day before the appointed time of the previous New Generation Madness killings. Second of all, the victim, though decapitated and set on fire, was determined to be much older than the previous victims, somewhere between their 30s and 50s. Now, unbeknownst to anyone, there is a case of an adult in their middle ages being a gigolomaniac, but Genishi Narose is dead, so he doesn't count anymore. But, And finally, the lack of sumo stickers, both at the crime scene and the surrounding area. So, something has happened. Something else that has occurred as a result of Riko Haida being locked away in police custody. At least that's where I assume she is, because Shinjo has neither confirmed nor denied that she is still being held in police custody. But anyway, it is the 26th of October.
ねえ、聞いた？聞いた。あれって D 組の子でしょ？私、1年の時同じクラスだったんだけど。
The whole school was talking about a new incident that had taken place. Concerning a girl in Class 3D.
もうみんな知ってると思うが、新たな事件が起きた。しかも被害者は碧峰学園の2年生女子、つまりこの学校の生徒だ。
And yet another victim, it seems. Because of that, we had an emergency assembly this morning. The school staff were busy dealing with the second big incident after the Wadabe case. And most classes were study halls. They should have just made it a half day, but since the media were outside, they kept us until the full day was over. It was only after school that we were able to have our meeting. Here's what we knew about the case. According to the police announcement, the murder took place sometime after 11 p.m. last night. That would have been the 25th, so yeah. Something else is now happening since the original timeline has been displaced. Shibuya was always pretty busy, even at that hour, but the area where the murder took place was isolated and at times could be almost empty. The cause of death was blood loss. The victim had been stabbed multiple times with a sharp blade, and the area around her was said to be a sea of blood.
この事件どう思う?
Like always, Ito was the first to answer.
どうってのはこれまで起きたニュージェネの再来と同じかどうかってことか?
We're not really going to talk about the decapitated body that was found in the multiplex building? Really?
もちろんそれも含めていろいろだよ。
関連があるかどうかって言われたら明らかに違うだろう。
Yeah, that is true. Besides the date, it's a bit too spontaneous if you ask me. But then again, as I pointed out in the previous episode, well, as we should already know long by now, that the return of the new generation madness is in and of itself nothing more than mimicking the original new generation serial killings to begin with.
どうしてそう思うの?
どうしても何もそもそも起きた日が違う。それに明らかに手口も普通だ。猟奇性の面から見ても関連性があるとは思えん。
To be fair, the fourth victim in the original New Generation Madness serial killings was exsanguinated, although his skin turned green. So there's that. Also, hi, Kursu. Yeah, she's yeah, she is going to be none too pleased about yeah, I know that was a absolutely atrocious pun there. I should stopped. Yeah. Oh. Kazuki was actually involved in the conversation for once. She nodded in agreement, but Kurusu shook her head.
何言ってるの? 刃物でめった刺しなんてそれだけで十分猟奇的じゃない?
いや、そりゃそうだけど、俺が言いたいのはつまりこう方向性みたいな、犯罪の醸し出す色っつうか雰囲気っつうか、要するに不可解なところがないってこと。
確かに手を切って食べたとか、お腹の中にスピーカーがとか、そういうのとは違うよね。
You're doing that deliberately, aren't you, Seroka?
だろ？だからやっぱ関係ないんじゃねえの？
Evidently, everyone agreed with Ito's opinion. Is nobody going to talk about the fact that a man was decapitated and set on fire? Even if it is unrelated to the other ones, which, yeah. Which I don't think it is.
お前はどうなんだよ？
僕も伊藤と同じ意見だ。残念ながらこれまでの事件とは無関係だと思う。
ちょっとタクル、残念ながらってどういうこと？
Crap. I'd accidentally said what I was thinking. Out loud. In front of Kurisu.
いい？あなたは狙われたのよ。下手をしたらあなたが面白がっているその被害者の人たちと同じようになっていたかもしれないのよ。わかってる？
わかってるよ。
Here we go again.
そもそも今回の被害者はこの学校の生徒なのよ。同じ学校で過ごしている女の子が亡くなったの。面白がっている場合じゃないでしょ
う。だから何度も言わなくったって大丈夫だって、そう言ってるだろ。
Why was Kurisu here at the newspaper club when a student from our school was dead anyway? Think you kind of answered your own question there.
今私たちがするべきことは全校生徒に注意を促すための記事を書くこと。これは先生方からも頼まれた新聞部としての役目なの。これはそのための会議なんだからそこを忘れないで。
わかってるってば。
それから
生徒会会長のクルスさん、至急生徒会室まで来てください。繰り返します。生徒会会長のクルスさん。
Kawahara, I know we have our differences, but your timing is impeccable.
ほら呼んでるぞ。
それじゃあ言ってくるけど、くれぐれも今言ったこと忘れちゃダメだからね。
Kurisu nagged me one more time before she ran out of the room.
のんちゃん、忙しいのにわざわざ来てくれたんだね。
それだけ宮代が信頼されてないってことだな。いや、逆に信頼されてるってことか？どっちだ？
That's actually a very good question.
どっちだっていいよ。それより話に戻るぞ。
Thanks to Kurisu's interruptions, I'd forgotten how much we covered. Right.
今回の被害者はうちの2年ってことだが、有村や尾上はこの被害者の子のことは知らなかったのか？
私は1年の時何度か言葉を交わした程度なら学校休みがちな子だったみたいだし。私もよくは知らない。クラスの子の話だと学校をサボって遊び回ってるって話だったけど。
Since the murder had taken place past 11 p.m., it wasn't hard to imagine.
でもちょっと怖いかも。事件のあったところって私も学校の行き帰りに通る道だし。
Now that is quite the coincidence.
そうなのか？
うん。ほら言ったでしょ、この前の階段であの近くだから、ちょっと気味悪いかも。
Somebody had tried to push Arimura down the stairs. Given that it was near the scene of the murder, maybe it was just some sicko trying to kill little girls. It wouldn't be too far wrong.
まあ、やっぱ今回のは今までのとは関係ないってやつだよ。
And you're saying that we should just ignore it, along with the other, seemingly unrelated death that happened recently.
言い方は悪いが、遊び歩いてた女がたまたま変質者にやられたか、あるいは地上のもつれってところか。
And had her blood completely exsanguinated?
いくらなんでもそれはないよ。だって高校生だよ。地上のもつれって言ったら、その男子と女子がそのゴニョゴニョなことでしょ。
小学生かよ。高校生にもなりゃ地上でもつれることだってあるだろう。
そうなの？世の中の高校生はそうなの？もつれちゃうの？ねえ、タク。
そりゃ子供じゃないんだし、そういうことだってあるんじゃないか。
I feel like we're straying down a tangent of no return.
そうなんだ。じゃあ、花ちゃんももつれちゃったりするの？うん。
She frantically denied it. Yeah, that wasn't going to happen with Kazuki. Except when it comes to SO2. She always has quarrels with the wall. Anyway, we were getting off track.
しかしまあ、同じ学校のやつが殺されたってのは気持ちいいもんじゃねえよな。
No, it isn't. A student from my school. In that sense, this victim was the one who had been closest to us. What did that mean? Well, we need to find out.
すっかり遅くなっちゃいましたね。
Indeed it is.
うん。
考えてみれば、もう11月ですもんね。そういえば復興祭って来週でしたっけ？
Ah yes, the Restoration Festival.
うん。
Even if this case and the last one had nothing to do with the other murders. I was starting to think that maybe that didn't mean the return of the new generation madness was over. At first I thought that Riko Haida was responsible for all of them. No, I've only been convinced of that because of the terror I'd felt after being attacked. But after I calmed down, it felt like there were things I couldn't explain if she were doing this on her own. that's because she's not. And there was that underground lab too. If an organization big enough to make something like that lab was involved, Riko Haida might have just been the tip of the iceberg. Unfortunately, the police hadn't gotten any useful information out of her, so there was no way of knowing if she was connected to something bigger or not. Oh, she is, just, she's not aware of it herself. Even if she was responsible, we didn't know why she committed her murders on the same days as the new generation madness. Was it some kind of message? Was it to make it more sensational? Either way, if there was something bigger behind her, we'd already been a target once. Maybe we couldn't relax just yet.
も
Yeah, we are kind of standing around in the middle of the night. Suddenly, somebody grabbed both my cheeks, bringing me back to my senses.
うさっきから話してるのに全然聞いてない。
ごめん。なんだっけ。
Only proving a point there.
だから復興祭一緒に行こうねって話です。
ああ、一緒か。
もう約束ですよ。
She let go of my cheeks and then gently rubbed them. I felt kind of embarrassed, not to mention sore.
それじゃあ私はあっちなんで。
送っていこうか。
There was that murder yesterday, and then the thing with the stairs before that. Of course, I was a little worried too, but as a man, it was time to show off. Not in front of Hinae Arimura, it's not.
大丈夫です。ちゃんと人通りの多いところ通っていくから。
でも。
Suddenly, Arimura leaned up, and I felt something soft on my cheek. By the time I realized it was her lips, she had already pulled away.
アディオスグラッシャー。
Oh.
And like that, she just ran off. Before I could say something, she smiled, said her goodbye, and vanished into the crowd. I was suddenly overcome by the idea that she was going to vanish forever. I drove the unpleasant thought from my head and headed for home, feeling just a little excited. I could still feel a soft warmth on my cheek. Same day. Or night. Just like she promised Takuru, Hinae Arimura stuck to the busy roads on her way back. She remembered Takuru's face when they said goodbye. He was probably scared himself, but he was holding it in and pretending to be brave. Anybody could see he was just putting on an act. It was easy to figure out. Too easy, in fact. And that made Hinae feel at peace. Everyone was hiding their true feelings, their truth deep within their heart. There was nothing true in this world at all. That's what she'd thought that day. Never tell a lie. Her brother had been the one who had taught her that, but he still didn't tell her what was really important. Not until the tragic end. He didn't tell her the truth. So where was the truth? That was the question she'd been grappling with for the last 6 years.
お兄ちゃん。
A friend she just made had just recently asked... sorry, let me read that again. A friend she'd made just recently had asked if she wanted to see her brother. Hinae almost never talked about herself, but she had been talking about her family. And then her friend had asked her. She didn't know why, but the question had surprised her and she'd nodded yes. She didn't hate her brother for lying to her. And even if she did, he was gone. Because on that day, she'd left him to die. So instead, she felt guilty toward him. If she could meet him, she wanted to apologize. But that... yeah, that cannot be changed. Not now. The crosswalk sign turned red and Hinae stopped walking. Even at night, Shibuya was crawling with people. With this many people around, she thought it wouldn't be easy for someone to attack her. As soon as the traffic light turned green, the cars started to move. And then... someone pushed her hard, and she staggered out onto the street. The headlights were bearing down on her before she even had time to think. When she finally opened her eyes, the car bumper was just a few centimeters from her face. Oh.
おい、大丈夫か?
Thank heavens for those brakes.
何やってんだよ。危ねえな。
The people waiting for the light started to make a fuss. The sound of a dozen car horns echoed off the sides of the buildings. But Hinae didn't hear any of that. She was only looking at one thing. It was the place where she'd been standing a moment ago. Just before she'd almost been hit, she'd looked up and seen them. It was her dead brother, Shingo. But that's impossible. Although then again... I looked at the clock and it was past 3 AM. I'd started looking around to see if there was any new information on the case, and the next thing I knew, it was really late. But I didn't end up finding anything new, and as I read, I ended up focusing on something else. It was an article about how a company called Code Conscion that had been involved but the Restoration Festival had put up security cameras all over town and had been subject to a lawsuit. Yet we still don't know much about this Koshin. The situation had gotten pretty complicated, and by the time I'd finished reading, it was really late.
さすがに寝るか。
It wasn't true that caffeine stopped you from getting sleepy. I always drank caffeine before bed, and I was always able to sleep. When I opened my fridge to get my late night mountain view, I realized I had a big problem.
ない。
Oh, of course. I'd forgotten that I drank my last bottle yesterday.
しょうがない。我慢するか。
Or so I thought, but... Once you found out that you couldn't drink something that you wanted to drink, it became an obsession. That's just human nature. Caffeine was addictive. Maybe I was undergoing withdrawal. But the convenience store I'd have to go to in order to get the mountain view was a bit of a walk from here. Not to mention it's late at night.
くそ。
In the end, however, I couldn't defeat my own desires. I went out into the city late at night to get my mountain view. Well, it's your funeral.
ありがとうございました。
After I'd succeeded in purchasing several bottles of Mountain Dew, I took one and opened it as I stood outside on the sidewalk. My body felt like it had been purified. Just as I thought now I'd be able to sleep, I suddenly remembered all the murders that had happened so far, which has only just now occurred to you again. Yeah, that was quite a bit reckless of you there. Just hope that Kurusu never finds out about this little late night excursion. I suddenly felt afraid of the situation I was in. I was in Shibuya in the middle of the night, in a place that was almost empty at this hour. Sudden fear gripped me and I started to run, only to trip on something. Evidently I'd run into a trash can. Yeah, panic tends to do that to people. Causes them to run into trash cans. There usually wasn't a trash can here. I felt a dull pain where my body had hit the ground. I hadn't been holding the bottle tightly, so the cap on my Mountain Dew had fallen off and the bottle was leaking.
くそ。
I sat up and stretched out my hand to grab the bottle, only to touch something else.
なんだこれ。
I have a genuine pit in my stomach. It wasn't a plastic bottle. It was softer, like clay. I slowly looked up. What I saw made me gasp. It wasn't a trash can. It was a laundry basket with wheels. At first I thought the thing that fell out from inside was a mannequin or something. It was strangely cold and a little black, at least in this light. But the soft feeling against my skin and the way its eyes were open told me that it was no mannequin. It was...
Huh?
A dead body. Yeah, that would be enough to ruin anyone's night.
であるから、この場合、テンピーは。
Oh goody, more math. Guaranteed to ruin everyone's mornings.
おい、今何時だと。ああ、宮代か。座れ。
な、宮代ってさ。
知ってる知ってる。またでしょ。ちょっとすごくない？いくら空前だからって。
静かにしなさい。授業を続けるぞ。
And so the day goes on.
タク、聞いたよ。
な、昨日の話早く聞かせろよ。
After I found the body in the alleyway this morning, I called the police. By the time they were done questioning me, it was almost lunchtime. I hadn't slept a wink last night, but I was feeling so tense that it didn't matter. The whole school had heard about how I'd found a body, and I could hear people talking about it as I passed them by. Well, this day certainly isn't going by anytime soon. I could understand why. This was the third body I've been the first person to discover. I might have been the only person in the whole wide world to discover 3 bodies in just over a month. At this point, the police were less surprised than they were annoyed.
言っとくけど、あれは僕が自分で探したわけじゃないからな。
Kurisu had come to see me too, along with Ito and Seruka. I made sure she understood the real story. Not that she would be happy that Takuru went out late at night to buy a whole bunch of mountain views.
わかってるわよ。でも、どうしてあなたばっかりそんな現場に。
Why indeed?
ほんと持ってるとしか思えないよな。
It's almost as if whoever's responsible for the second wave new generation madness is trying a different tack. God damn it.
伊藤くん、前にも言ったわよね。人が亡くなってるのよ。不謹慎でしょ。
Oh, Kurisu. There are many things about this whole situation that you are painfully unaware of. Very painfully unaware of.
と、こりゃ失言。
Yeah, but however you don't seem sorry. I wonder why, he says in a sarcastic tone.
でも、タクもすっかり有名人だね。
It's almost as if somebody else outside had set this whole thing up just for that very occasion.
別に僕が何かやったわけじゃないけどな。
そうよ。それにこんなことで有名になったって仕方ないでしょう。それはそうだけど。
で、被害者は？
それはまだわからないらしい。
Still unknown. The police had said there was nothing on the body that could help them ID it. All they knew was that it was a man in his mid-40s. Again, different from the, and it's the same as the decapitated body that was set on fire. That you all ignored.
なるほどな。ってことは、やっぱあれとは無関係か。
Yeah. The fact that you, Shinji, are ignoring this one just as you're ignoring the others. Yeah.
かもな。
This case was the one most similar to the return of the new generation madness. But given the victim's age and date of the murder, it was hard to say if it was related. It was too early to say for sure, though.
それでどんなだった？
どんなって？
だから死体だよ。ネットで見る限りはめった刺しだったって話だけど。
暗かったせいではっきりしたことは僕もわからない。ただ触った感じからして死んでからそこそこ経ってるような感じではあった。
タク、触ったの？
Well, bumped into it is probably more accurate.
転んだ時にたまたまな。
マジか。でどんな感触だった？
ゴムみたいな感じだな。なんかグニュッとしてて意外と硬くて。
もう二人ともいい加減にしなさい。そんな話聞きたくないわ。
聞きたくないならどこか行けばいいだろ。
それは。
それとも本当は気になるんじゃないのか？
そんなわけないでしょ。
I kept talking with Kurusu for a moment before someone came over from the door.
有村。
宮代先輩。
Arimura, Arimura looked really tired. Not surprising given what she has been through.
どうしたわざわざ。もしかしてお前も事件のことを聞きに来たのか？
事件のこと？あれ？ひなちゃん知らないの？タク、また見つけちゃったんだって。殺人現場。え？
From the look of things, she really didn't know. That's because Hinae had a rough night of her own. Given how many friends she had, that was a little surprising, if we can call those people friends. From the way the rest of the school had been talking about it, she should have at least heard something. However...
有村さん、どうしたの？なんだかいつもと違って元気がないみたいだけど。
And, Kurusu actually making the one observation that actually really counts.
もしかして、私たちがいると言いにくいこと？
Now it's, Kurusu cutting to the heart of the matter.
いえ、そういうわけじゃ。
じゃあどうしたんだ？
Let's just say it's not something that can easily be talked about in front of other people. Arimura still seemed like she didn't want to talk, but eventually she slowly began to speak.
実は私、昨日襲われて。
襲われた？
マジかよ。
襲われたってことは命を狙われたってこと？それで大丈夫だったの？
Everyone started to ask questions.
昨日って僕と別れたあの後か？
はい。あの後すぐスクランブル交差点で。そんな人気の多いところで？
Actually, now that I think about it, the notion that a whole crowd of people would make it harder for anyone to actually do anything, actually not as great as an idea as it sounds.
信号が赤に変わって待ってたらいきなり背中から突き飛ばされて。
Push from behind. That was the same as what happened before, with the stairs. Which meant that it wasn't her imagination. Someone had really pushed her. However, about that someone...
それで怪我は？もう少しで引かれるところでしたけど、なんとか。怪我もすりむいたくらいで。警察には行ったの？まだ。
Yeah, not surprising given the circumstances.
どうして言わないの？それは。
She felt silent, as if it were hard to say, which for Hinae Arimura, it certainly is. Someone had pushed her onto the street, and in a busy intersection. She was lucky to survive. She could easily have been killed. And since it had happened twice now, it was obviously an attempt on her life. But she hadn't gone to the police. Was there something she couldn't tell them about? Yes, indeed. There certainly is.
とにかく警察に言うべきよ。なんなら私が一緒に。
Well, first, yeah, probably better for Hinae to actually tell the newspaper club about it. Then they'll know why she can't go to the cops.
あ、いえ。有村さん？実は。
Before she could say something, the door to the classroom opened. Yeah, I knew it was only a matter of time before you showed up, Shinjo. Was Detective Shinjo. Ace Detective. The whole classroom started to murmur at the sight of a strange man.
ああ、落ち着いてくれ。怪しいもんじゃない。
That's what they always say, especially the suspicious ones. He looked around the classroom until he found us, then walked straight over.
ここだったか。
まだ何か？
いや、今用があるのは宮代くんじゃなく君だ。ちょっと来てもらえるか
？Shinjo was looking in the direction of...
え？私ですか？
Hinae Arimura.
君まで来る必要はなかったんだがな、宮代くん。
I would beg to differ. Yeah, Shinjo said as soon as we entered the room. But that was what Arimura wanted. She wanted me to be with her when she went with the police.
もしかして君たちは、いや、いい、今は関係のない話だ。
Shinjo seemed like he wanted to say something when he saw the two of us, but now wasn't the time. Well, at least he has some tact.
まあいい。同席を認めよう。どうせ遅かれ早かれ第一発見者である君の耳にも入るだろうからな。
That is also true.
単刀直入に言おう。有村ひなえさん。君には今からすぐに警察へ来てもらいたい。
警察にですか？
そうだ。
どうして？
That was actually my question as well.
落ち着いて聞いてもらいたい。
I had a bad premonition.
今朝方、渋谷の路地裏で発見された他殺体は当然知ってるな。
はい。宮代先輩が。
そう、彼が発見した遺体だ。その被害者の身元が特定された。
It couldn't be.
被害者は有村光一郎、君のお父さんだ。
Well, there's a real kick in the teeth there. The victim, the corpse that Takuru Miyashiro had found, was none other than Hinae's estranged, not a father, adoptive surrogate, guardian, I guess. But still. Yeah, as usual, things still aren't looking good here in Shibuya. But that is going to end this episode of Let's Play ChäoS Child. And when we return, things are definitely not going to get any better from here on out. As always, adventurers, until next we meet.